The story of contemporary genetics began with the geneticists talking about the new genetics, and by that they meant molecular genetics. Now, this became hugely attractive because it offered a completely new way of thinking about the transmission of diseases, amongst other things. And the idea, and it was actually called in Europe, it was called preventative medicine, which is eugenics. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm totally against eugenic measures. I just think we need to be able to say what we're doing. And we need to discuss, is this the kind of thing that we want to do? Genetics and eugenics are like conjoint twins. They are joined together. They cannot be separated, the one from the other. And you have to face that squarely, not say we wouldn't do that, but talk about it, make it clear, take the disability movement on, or agree with it. But you can't just ignore it and pretend those deep political issues aren't on the table. So and the similar thing happened with embryonic stem cell research, going to take a lot of money, needs its big research, and in all of these information technologies, absolutely crucial. And to make these enormous promises and not to have clear public debate is really a travesty of democracy and science. Bioethics, which sprang into existence or was powered up with the opening of the Human Genome Project. And Jim Watson decided that 5% of the budget, which is a huge amount of money, should be devoted to the ethical, legal and social implications of the human genome research. Now, what was he thinking with that? Well, he was thinking eugenics. Bioethics really became almost an industry, and it grew and grew and grew. Some of it was very clever and intelligent, a lot of it was fairly dreadful. And it now has become a sort of requirement that when you're doing certain kinds of research, that you need a bioethicist as part of the project. And that raises all sorts of problems. How independent is a bioethicist whom the proposals of the proposers of the research recruit? Can they afford to be as tough as they might be if they were fully independent? It's become a kind of outsourcing of ethics because the scientists themselves don't really have to worry about this because they've got this professional, the expert, who can come in and explain to them all the ethical problems, and then together everything can be decided. Doing genetic research doesn't necessarily lead to even clinical care, let alone finding out the causes of ill health. And the absolutely classical one is that terrible disease called Huntington's. Now, they discovered the gene for that, I think it was in the 1980s. There isn't anything that they can do except if a woman chooses to have a test during her pregnancy, she can decide to have an abortion. That's all they can do. You turn to another, if I may, turn to another whole area of research. If you turn to stem cell research, now here is your leader from The Guardian, completely euphoric. The potential of stem cell research is almost biblical in its scale. The capacity for these cells to transform into whatever the body needs to regenerate itself could, in the lifetime of the next generation, make the blind see, the crippled walk and the deaf hear. It could cure cystic fibrosis and arrest muscular dystrophy. Now, I would regard that as just a shade over the top. Now, as a feminist, I also deeply resent it, because the raw material from which this research is being done is embryonic stem cell research. Now, the debate is usually figured between the religious fundamentalists, evangelicals, and the Catholics on one side, the religious, and science on the other. I'm much more interested in the raw material, which is the eggs from women's bodies, which can only be secured by women putting themselves at risk. You can even lose your life through this process. It's also very unpleasant. And it is considered appropriate to mine women's bodies in order to get the raw material for research. Now, I consider that an absolutely, to me, an almost non-negotiable ethical problem. Because what it does, it casts women in the Victorian angel in the house, the self-sacrificing woman who gets all her meaning in life is sacrificing herself for others. And it seems to me that this is what women are being asked to do who participate in this, and that their glow comes from being self-sacrificing, risking their lives, blah, 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 blah. And I find this quite unacceptable.